Welcome to section 2.5, survey problems. Objective number 1, use Venn diagrams to visualize a survey's results. In survey problems, it is helpful to remember that and means intersection, or means union, and not means complement. Furthermore, but means the same thing as and. Thus, but means intersection. Okay, so these are the different set operations that we looked at in the previous sections. And so now we're going to dive in deeper and look at some survey problems, which this means that a survey was done and now we want to look at the results in order to answer some questions. Here's our first example. So in a survey on musical tastes, respondents were asked, do you listen to classical music? Do you listen to jazz? The survey results are summarized in the Venn diagram above. We want to use a diagram to answer the following questions. How many respondents listened to classical music? That's the first question. Well, we know classical music and jazz are the two subsets of our universal set. So classical music would be the left complete circle. So we would take 55 plus 20 to get the total number of respondents who listen to classical music, and that would be 75. How many respondents listen to jazz? Now, jazz is the second circle on the right. The two values in that circle are 20 and 70, which added together get us 90. So 90 respondents listen to jazz. How many respondents listen to both classical music and jazz? So the key here is both classical music and jazz. And we know and signifies an intersection. So we're going to look at the intersection between the two circles or what they have in common. And that would be 20. How many respondents listen to classical music or jazz? So classical music or jazz, the key word here is or. And we know or signifies union. So we want to know the elements that are in A or B or both. So that would be 55 plus 20 plus 70, which is 145. How many respondents listen to classical music but not jazz? Okay, classical music but not jazz, because we know there's a part of the classical music subset of people who also listen to jazz. So we just want those that listened only to classical music, and that would be 55. How many respondents listen to jazz but not classical music? Okay, so this is the reverse. So we want only the people who listen to jazz and jazz alone, and that would be 70. How many respondents listen to neither classical music nor jazz? So they didn't listen to classical music and they didn't listen to jazz. So that means this value would not reside within the subsets for classical music and jazz. It would reside outside of that, and that would be 30 respondents. And then how many people were surveyed? So the total number of people would be 55 plus 20 plus 70 plus 30. And that equals 175 people. Great. Let's do another one. All right. Survey results were tabulated involving 2 Harris polls taken in 2017 and 2018. For each year, respondents were classified by age bracket, 18 to 34 versus 35 to 51, and whether they were comfortable with learning that a family member was LGBTQ. The results of the surveys indicating the number of respondents in each region are shown in the Venn diagram. We need to use this Venn diagram to answer the following questions. So this is a 3-set Venn diagram. The Venn diagram contains the 3 subsets, the year 2017, 18 to 34, and whether they were comfortable learning about a family member being LGBTQ. Now you might be thinking, where's 2018 or the other age bracket, 35 to 51, or the response to people being uncomfortable? Well, it's automatically implied because each of these subsets have 2 options. For example, 2017 or 2018. That means if I'm not in the 2017 circle, then I'm going to be 2018. Same thing with 18 to 34. If I'm not in that subset, then I would be considered 35 to 51. And similarly for comfortable, if I'm not within the circle or subset for comfortable, then I would be considered uncomfortable. Okay. All right. For the 2017 poll, how many respondents ages 18 to 34 were uncomfortable with an LGBTQ family member? And we're looking at a 2017 poll. So we have our subset. Let me get my pointer on. We have our subset for 2017. All right. We want to look at respondents ages 18 to 34. So that overlap would be these 2 items right here. And we want respondents who were uncomfortable. Well, this 710 is within the comfortable subset. So the value 290 would be the respondents who were uncomfortable because it's outside of the comfortable subset. Okay, let's look at the next one. For the 2017 poll, how many respondents, 35 to 51, were comfortable with an LGBTQ family member? So we're starting in the 2017 subset. We want respondents who are 35 to 51. That means we need to exclude the 290 and the 710 because they are part of the 18 to 34 subset. So we're looking at 280 and 720. And the third part is that they were comfortable. Well, 720 is a part of the comfortable subset, so we know 720 would be our final answer. Okay. Next, for the 2018 poll, how many respondents ages 18 to 34 were comfortable? Okay. So in 2018, so this 2017 subset is our circle. That means the values outside of that subset would be the values that we would be considering. Okay. We want respondents 18 to 34. So that needs to be within this circle. So that would either be 360 or 640. And these respondents are comfortable. So we need to choose the value that's contained within the subset of being comfortable, which is 640. Awesome. Next, for the 2018 poll, how many respondents ages 18 to 34 were uncomfortable? Okay. So in 2018, so that's going to be outside of the 2017 bracket. So that's going to be these four values. How many respondents 18 to 34? So now we're inside the 18 to 34. So we're looking at 360 and 640, and they were uncomfortable. So that means they're not comfortable. So we must not be within the comfortable subset. So that would be 360. Okay. All right. For 2017 and 2018 polls combined, how many respondents ages 35 to 51 were comfortable? Okay. So now for this one, we're looking at 2017 and 2018. So we're going to look at the values within the subset 2017 and all of the values outside of that subset as well, as they represent the values for 2018. So in other words, we're looking at all the values. Okay. So now we want to know how many respondents ages 35 to 51. Okay, so that means we are going to eliminate the values that are inside the 18 to 34 because we want values for ages between 35 and 51. So that leaves us with 280, 720, 700, and 300. Okay, now we want to know from the remaining respondents how many of them were comfortable. So now we want the values between these four that are within the comfortable subset. So that would be 720 and 700. Giving us a total of 1,420. Okay. And then our last question for 2017 to 2018 combined, how many respondents ages 35 to 51 were uncomfortable? So again, we're looking at both years, 2017 and 2018. So that would be all of the data values. Then we're going to be looking at respondents between the ages of 35 and 51. So that's going to be the numbers that are outside of the subset for ages 18 to 34. So again, we're looking at the numbers 280, 720, 700, and 300. Now we want to know from these four values which one would represent respondents who were uncomfortable. So if they're uncomfortable, that means the value is going to be outside of the subset of comfortable. So between these four values, the values that are outside or not included within this subset would be 280 and 300. Which will equal 580. All right. Next objective. Use survey results to complete Venn diagrams and answer questions about the survey. So Venn diagrams are used to solve problems involving surveys. So here are the steps needed to solve survey problems. Step 1, we're going to use the survey's description to define sets and draw a Venn diagram. Then in step 2, we'll use the survey's results to determine the cardinality of each region in the Venn diagram. And we'll start with the intersection of the sets, the innermost region, and then work outward. Then we'll use, in step 3, the Venn diagram to answer the problem's questions. Okay. So in our guided example number 3, a survey was taken that asked 1,700 randomly selected US and French adults to agree or disagree with the following statement. It is the responsibility of the government to reduce income differences. The The results of the survey showed that 1,040 people agreed with the statement. 290 Americans agreed with the statement. If 810 adults surveyed were Americans, how many French adults agreed with the statement and how many French adults disagreed with the statement? Okay. So in step number 1, we are going to define our sets and then draw a sketch of what our Venn diagram is going to look like. So in the top here, I have my problem statement. I've eliminated the questions for now, as we'll answer those in step 3. Okay. So I have 2 sets. So we're going to let set A represent the Americans surveyed, which means if we are not set A, we would be the French surveyed. Okay. Then we'll let set B be the adults who agree. So if we're not set B, we would be included in the adults who disagree. Okay, so we have 2 subsets. So a sketch of this, we have our universal set, and we have our 2 circles. We have region 1, region 2, region 3, and region 4. This would be set A. This will be set B. Okay. All right. Step number 2. Step number 2 is to now use the survey results to determine the cardinality for each region in the Venn diagram. Okay. And remember from our previous section, we want to start with everything that we know from the problem and then help identify what the other regions would be. Okay. So I'm going to draw my Venn diagram here again, but this time we are going to be including the data values. So that's A, B, and the union set. Okay, so what does our problem tell us? The survey was taken that asked 1,700 randomly. So the cardinality of the universal set is 1,700. That's the total number of people that they surveyed. Okay. What else do we know? Well, we know that 1,040 people agreed with the statement. And we know adults who agree was our set B. We know that we know that 290 Americans agreed with the statement. Well, we know Americans that were surveyed is set A, and we know set B is going to be the number of people who agreed or adults who agreed. So that means A intersect B will equal 290. Okay. All right. What else do we know here? Let's read this real quickly. We also know, lastly, 810 adults surveyed were Americans. Well, set A is the number of Americans who were surveyed. So the cardinality of set A would be 810. Okay. So now let's plug in our values into our Venn diagram. So for step 1, we will start with region 2. Okay, we want to start with the innermost region. All right, so that's going to be the intersection between set A and B. So that's 290. Step 2, we will then go to region number 1. Okay, so this is going to be the cardinality of set A minus the intersection, because we want the people who were Americans but disagreed. So we need to remove the number of Americans who agreed. So that's 810 minus 290, which equals, sorry, not 290. It would be, oh, it is 290 because the intersection is 290. So that would be 520. Okay. Step 3 would be region number 3. So this region number 3 is going to be the number of French people, meaning not Americans, who agree with the statement. So this would be the cardinality of set B minus the intersection of A and B. So that would be 1040 minus 290, which equals 750. And then our final step, which is step number 4, which would be region number 4. Okay. We want to take the universal, cardinality of the universal, and we want to subtract all of the subsets. So we would take the cardinality of A plus the cardinality of B minus the cardinality of the intersection of A and B. So that would be 1700 minus 520 plus 290 plus, oh sorry, this would be plus, not minus, plus 750. I believe I switched those. It should be 750 and then 90. I didn't do it in the correct order. Let me write it in the correct order just so that you know. So this would be 750 and then 290. Okay. And that will equal 1700 minus 1560, which equals 140. Okay. Alrighty. Excellent. So now our last step is to answer the questions. So if 810 adults surveyed were Americans, how many French adults agreed with the statement? So going back to our Venn diagram here, we want to know how many French adults agreed with the statement? Well, we know set B is the adults who agreed, and we know set A is for the Americans who took the survey. So anything outside of set A would be considered the French adults. So the people who are French who also agreed would be 750. So that would be in region number 3. Now, how many French adults disagreed with the statement? Well, we know right off the bat that outside of set A, we would be considered French adults. Now, if we want to know how many disagreed, I also have to be outside of set B as well. So the number of adults who were French and disagreed is 140. And so that would be region number 4. Okay. Awesome. Okay. A survey of 250 memorabilia collectors showed the following results. 108 collected baseball cards, 92 collected comic books, and 62 collected stamps. Furthermore, 29 collected baseball cards and comic books, 5 collected baseball cards and stamps, and 2 collected comic books and stamps. Finally, 2 collected all 3 types of memorabilia. Construct a Venn diagram and determine the cardinality for each region. Use the Venn diagram to determine how many of those surveyed collected one of these 6 options. Okay, so we'll answer those questions in step 3. But in step 1, we need to define our sets. So let's do that. We're going to let set B be the collectors who collected baseball cards. We'll let set C be the collectors who collected comic books. And we'll let set S be the collectors who collected stamps. So that means we have 3 sets. So if we draw our Venn diagram here, you'll have 3 circles. Universal. Okay, so this would be set B, C, and S. This would be region 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Okay. So in step 2, we're going to define each region, but let's first list out all the information that's given to us in the problem. So we know the universal set is going to be 250. We know the number of collectors who collected baseball cards is 108. The number of collectors who collected comic books is 92. The number of collectors who collected stamps is 62. Now, into the combinations, the number of collectors who collected baseball cards and comic books is 29. The number of collectors who collected baseball cards and stamps is 5. The number of collectors who collected comic books and stamps is 2. And then lastly, the number of collectors who collected baseball cards and comic books and stamps is also 2. Okay. Universal. I know this is region 8. This is B, C, and S. Region 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay. All right. So first things, we want to do the innermost region, which is going to be region 5. Region 5 is going to be the intersection of B, C, and S, which we know is 2. Okay. Next, we'll go to region number 2, which is going to be part of the intersection between B and C. And we know the intersection between B and C is 29, but we already have 2. So we're going to subtract 2 to get the remaining, which is 27. That way, the complete intersection between B and C equals 29. Next, we'll go to number 4. Number 4 is a part of the intersection between B and S. B and S is 5. We already have 2, so the remaining is 3. So the total between B and S equals 5. Next, we will go to 6. 6 is a part of the intersection between C and S, which is 2. We already have 2, so that means 6 has 0, so that the total intersection between C and S is 2. Now we can go to region number 1. And for region number 1, that is a part of the subset B, which is 108. We already have 3 parts of B, which is 3, 2, and 27. So when we subtract all of those values, we'll get 76. Then we'll go to region number 3. This is a part of the set C. The total for set C is 92. We have 3 parts as well, 27, 2, and 0. So that would get us 63. Then we will go to region 7. Region 7 is set S. The total for set S is 62. We have 3 values already, 3, 2, and 0, which gives us a total of 57. And then region 8. Region 8, we know the total of the universal set is 250. So we would then have to subtract all of the values within the sets. So that would be 76, 27, 63, 3, 2, 0, and 57, giving us 22. Okay, and so now we have completed our Venn diagram. So in step 3, we can now answer our question. So we want to know how many collectors collected comic books, but neither baseball cards nor stamps. So neither baseball cards nor stamps. Okay, we just want the total number that collected comic books. So in the comic book circle, which is C, we have to eliminate the values that are shared with set B and set S. So the only number that's not is number 63, which is in region number 3. We want baseball cards and stamps, but not comic books. So we want baseball cards and stamps, but not comic books. Okay. So Anne says intersection. So we want the intersection between baseball cards and stamps. So that would be 3 and 2, but we don't want comic books. So we would have to eliminate 2, leaving us with just 3. Okay. Next, we want baseball cards or stamps, but not comic books. So baseball cards or stamps, but not comic books. Okay, so we're going to have some addition here because we have or, so we want a union. So everything in the first set and everything in the second set. So baseball cards or stamps, which means we're going to add all of the values, but we want to eliminate the values that are shared with the comic books. So the numbers then that we would be adding together would be 76, 3, and 57. Which is 136. So this would be regions 1, 4, and 7. We want to now know how many collectors had exactly 2 types of memorabilia. Exactly 2 types. So we know then that we're going to be looking at an intersection. Now, the one in the very most center of this Venn diagram in region number 5 is going to be where all 3 sets are combined. So we want to look at the intersections where there's only 2 sets. So that would be region 2, 4, and 6, 27, 3, and 0. So that's regions 2, 4, and 6. Next, we want to look for collectors who have at least one type of memorabilia. Well, in this universal set, we have 3 sets. And everything within those 3 sets are going to be collectors that have at least one. Okay, at least one. So the amount of people who have at least one memorabilia is going to be the value where all of the numbers within those 3 sets are added together. So this would be 76 plus 27 plus 63 plus 3 plus 2 plus 0 plus 57. Not 577. 57, which will equal 228, which is regions 1 through 7. So then lastly, how many collectors have none of the types of memorabilia? Well, that would be the value that's in region 8 because they're not in baseball, they're not in comic books, and they're not in stamps. So this would be 22, which is region number 8. All right. That concludes section 2.5.